Hello and welcome to Monster Mash. My name is Tyler Cianti and I'll be your host as we take a look at this week in baseball. It's been a little while since we ran a last podcast, and it's good to be back as we hope to keep you updated on everything having to do with our favorite starting nine. It's been a bit of a crazy week for the Sox, and that's putting it lightly. Fresh off a disappointing series in Detroit, they took their luck to Baltimore as they hope to gain some ground in the AL East against the second-place Orioles. Although the Red Sox Nation prayed for a sweep, they took a tough series loss that saw them shut out twice, scoring only one run in 27 innings of play. The road trip ended on a low note, but don't worry, as things got better as the Sox headed home. It looked like a little home cooking at Fenway was just what they needed, as the Sox scored 15 runs in the first two games of a four-game set against the Cleveland Indians, who ironically enough swept them last time the Sox played them back in Ohio. It's been an up and down week, and as you know, in 2014, it seems to be a little bit more down than up most times. But the Sox are fighting tooth and nail to stay relevant here in the Boston sports world. We'll take a little look at the past week and look at the highlights and some of the lowlights on our favorite starting nine. I guess the biggest highlight and the biggest success story of 2014 is Brock Holt. The kid was a throwaway from Pittsburgh. I think he's in his late 20s, but man, he has just been playing spectacular ball since joining the Sox. They've asked him to play a whole host of positions in the infield and outfield. I'm surprised they haven't asked him to pitch yet. And he's just been accepting every single challenge with a lot of poise and grace and been just mashing the ball lately out of the leadoff spot. He hit 407 the past week, and frankly, I'm not ashamed to say that he's my spirit animal. Speaking of hot hitters, though, Xander Bogaerts was in an 0 for 19 skid, but he changed that with a hard shot on Friday night to end a mini slump. Seriously, though, he hit the ball so hard off its light tower in Fenway that I swear it must have gotten out of the park by the time he was halfway to first. That's how much power Bogaerts has. And as he refines it and continues to grow and mature, things will only get better. That was just one of the many hits in the game, though, as Dan Nava and Mike Napoli have been on fire, hitting .412 and .381 respectively. Dan Nava especially has been a pleasant surprise as he started the season hitting a little bit south of 200. But for the Sox, the biggest thing in 2013 for them was having Dan Nava being able to be slated in that spot any day of the week. He played a majority of his games in the outfield, more games than I think he's ever played before, and he played well. He hit over 300, and for him to start the season doing so poorly at the plate, it put so much of a strain on the Red Sox offense and really took a big productive spot out of the lineup for them. Back, jumped up against the wall, caught it, and was able to throw it in for the out at first to complete the double play. If you didn't see it, don't worry, because I predict that Bradley will be patrolling the outfield for many years to come, because his defense alone warrants a spot in the starting lineup. The pitching especially was decent this week, with John Lester and John Lackey turning in decent outings against Cleveland, but really it was Brandon Workman who stole the show with a near no-hitter despite 2 rain delays against the Orioles. The kid has guts. He's got poise. That's something that Jerry Remy is very fond of saying and highlighting, and it's true. You look at Workman, he gets up there, he's a real major leaguer, he does his job, and he's not afraid of the outcome, he's not afraid to lose, which has been a big proponent of his success in 2014. There's a lot to be happy about the past few days, but the Sox have been winning, which really doesn't happen often anymore. But I've always got something to complain about, so let's get to that. The bats were silent through the entire Orioles series. They scored only one run in 27 innings of play, which I find very hard to believe it could happen against a team with a collective ERA of 4.07. Fortunately, they woke up in Cleveland, but we're always saying, the next time they play the Orioles, things will be different. The next time they play the Yankees. Well, one day, probably in August or September, we're not going to be able to say that anymore, and they're not going to have any next second chances or third chances or fourth chances. They got to be able to pull things together now while they still can. They still have time. I guess the next highlight, or the next low light, really is Ruby De La Rosa, who dazzled us with his 95-plus mile-per-hour fastball and a Pedro-esque changeup, and against the Rays in his 2014 debut, but since then has just been hit hard. He's been throwing in the lower 90s, and his changeup just hasn't been as sharp. Not really sure what's going on with De La Rosa. Maybe he's injured, maybe he's just psyched out, or something. It must be something mental, because he hasn't had much success since that outing, especially against the Orioles. He let up 4 runs, and really just hasn't been the guy the Sox thought they were getting one after that first outing, and he really kind of threw himself into a hole. Hopefully he can pull it together while the Sox wait for Clay Buchholz to make it off the DL and try to relearn to throw, I guess. And hopefully that won't be too long as the Sox kind of try to pull things together with their pitching staff. Fortunately, that's really it for the lowlights. I mean, there are a few errors here and there, but that's really not much to focus on, especially because the Sox ended up winning a little bit more this week than they have in the past. And it's not the prettiest way to win. Not all their wins were really clean and great, but a win is a win, and I'll take it any day. They'll finish off their series against the Indians on Saturday and Sunday before hosting the Twins to kick off next week. Don't forget to cheer on your favorite starting nine as they continue to grind it out in the AL East at 8 games behind. It doesn't look pretty, but when you figure they're only 3.5 behind the third-place Orioles and 4.5 behind the second-place Yankees, it really doesn't look that bad. They'll have their chances coming up. I'm not saying they'll be at first by the All-Star break. That's pretty much impossible. But there's no reason why, if they have a couple of good weeks these next week, they can't be in third place as we end the first half of the season. That's it for this week in baseball. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you can continue to watch the Sox and that there'll be something worth watching this week. And join us next week as we bring you our next podcast focusing on the highlights and lowlights from the week. Thanks, and take care, and go Red Sox.